Hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Viktor Neustoroyev. I'm a FIDE master. And today we're going to talk about how to play with a bishop against knight, how to exploit the advantage of having a bishop when you play the other side has a knight. Okay, please let me know if you can see the position, me, and hear the sound. You can type in the here in chat. Okay. So we have some new attendees. Okay, guys, please let me know where are you from and where did you find the announcement about this webinar? Was it on chess.com or maybe from my Facebook page or somewhere else? Please let me know. Okay, chess.com. So Ireland. Okay, good. Okay, fine. So okay, yeah, I know, guys. So some of you attend the webinar for many times. I believe it's your maybe fifth or sixth webinars. I already, no, this is my 37th webinar. If you want to watch the recordings of all our previous webinars, I suggest you to, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so this is the link to my YouTube channel. You can find almost all the recordings of all my webinars there and watch them if you are excited about them. What else? I also published a new video. Probably you watched this. It's about 5 things that you didn't know about, 5 facts that you didn't know about chess. Just another link for you. Watch this video if you didn't. Fine. So let's start with our webinar. So today we're talking about how to play with a bishop against knight. And I want you to look at this position that you see on the screen. And okay, I'll tell you it's white to move. Can you evaluate this position and suggest a good move for white? So what do you think white should do, and how do you evaluate this position in general? So, okay, Danilo wants to trade the queens with queen d5. Okay, as for queen d5, I think, yes, that makes sense because the endgame is in our favor. We have more space, but the problem is that we are 1 pawn down, actually. Did you notice it? Okay, so I agree with George that white has the advantage. It's because we have more space and the bishop is better than knight. So if you remember last time on our previous webinars when we talked about good and bad bishops, I told you that the side who plays without a bishop, so for example here black has no bishop and white has a bishop. So the side who has no bishop should use the second rule that Capablanca announced. It means that he should locate the pawns on dark squares to restrict a bishop activity. However, here he already located these two pawns on light squares and created weaknesses on his dark squares that we can occupy here or somehow use it. And something like h5 looks really good, but of course h5 should be maybe faced with b4. And what to do? Take, but then he may capture on c3. Of course, b4 is not the best choice. I believe something like rook d7 should be played here, and this is how black can continue the defense, and probably actually I think white has a full compensation for a pawn, but I can say that white is much better. If the number of pawns is equal, I say that white is better. But in this position, no, I think the extra pawn can compensate white activity. But b4 was played, and what to do now, George? What was your opinion? So what did you calculate here after h5? I'm sure you expected b4 to be played. Okay, right. So guys, you're right. Not h6, of course. So h takes g6. Why not h6? You may ask me. It's because then he takes here, and what? How to attack? The only move is this move to threaten a checkmate, but at least just either f6 or f5 would work in this position to stop the queen attacking on g7. So, but you are absolutely right about h takes g6, and if he captures the bishop, g takes f7 is a double check. The only way to defend is to move the king, but after rook g8, we win the game because of a checkmate. Like that. Okay, fine. So h takes g6 was played instead, and how to continue? Rook d6 or what? Or maybe let's move the bishop to f6. What do you think? Rook h1, f3. No, I don't like f3. I think f3. Wait, f3 maybe. Okay, f3. Queen e3, king here. Okay, I take here, then what? Actually, yes, actually it's a possible move, and in this position white is better because of rook g6. King h7. How would you play here? Queen b6? What for? Queen b6, I think f takes g6, or king take, oh, f takes g6, right, and then king g8 probably. Rook g4, yeah, something like rook g4, rook g2, rook g3. Rook g2, I think, is the most simple way, because then there is no defense against this move. Rook h1, I meant. So probably queen h6 is the only continuation. But then queen c2 check, and on the next move we play rook h2 and gain a queen. Like that. So actually f3 works. After f3, maybe queen c6 can be played to protect, but if so, then rook h1, b takes c3, queen takes c3, then f6. But queen c4, he blocks, and then queen h4 or what? Maybe this move with the idea to take and double, two ideas. Okay, so white is winning here. For example, f5 to stop. But then rook g1, and he can't really do anything. King g7 maybe? With queen h4, and we are threatening with a checkmate. Okay, fine. So go back. f3 is a good move, but not the best one. Bishop f6 is definitely a mistake. Why? Because bishop f6 is faced with knight d7. So you see, the knight on b8 was a bad piece. And if we play bishop f6, we allow him to activate the knight and at the same time to get a tempo. And now we have to play with our bishop once again because this sacrifice won't work. Rook h1 cannot be played. And black is better in this position. So, but rook d6, this is what makes sense here. Now, what if he takes? How to continue? What was the idea of rook d6 move? Rook g6 or rook dg6? Rook g. Okay, I'll show you. Rook d, okay. Rook g. Wait. So actually, which move? Which rook takes on g6? Okay. Or rook d. No, it makes difference. If rook g to g6, then king h7. Rook h6. No, yes, if in this position king g8, then rook dg. No, if king g8, then rook d to g6, what leads to queen sacrifice. And yes, here white is winning, of course. But if here king g7, then what? Queen c3, f6. Okay, and then of course the rook captures on f6. I believe this one is better to avoid any checks like that. So yes, in this position white is winning, it's obvious. So actually looks like in both situations, I mean both moves, rook d or rook g takes on g6, they both lead to a winning position for white. Okay, let's go back. So I like this move more because then what? If king h8, then just rook h6, queen h7, queen c3. Oh, no. I'll show you. King h8, rook h6, queen h7. Then take, queen d5, and then queen either here or here, what leads to a checkmate. Fine. So That's why here king h7, of course. Rook g7 check. He goes here, doesn't really matter where. And then we play queen c3, for example, with the idea to play queen f6 and deliver a checkmate. So he has to do this. And then we play rook g4, threatening the queen, and rook h4. So I think this is the most simple way to deliver a checkmate or gain a queen. Okay, yeah. Hi everyone who joined us recently. And by the way, if you guys don't know, I'm from Russia. I live in Novosibirsk. This is the third largest city in Russia. However, it's located very far from Moscow. It's located in the center part of Russia. So maybe you've heard about Siberia, a very cold place. But actually, now the weather is quite hot and sometimes it's plus 30 degrees. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are not going to analyze only one position because I prepared several positions for you. So this one is too simple, but my task is to explain the basics. So here, the bishop is located in a quite a good position, and it's easy to realize this advantage by activating the bishop and using the weakness on his dark squares. Okay, fine. Wait a second. Actually, that wasn't played in the game. Rook d6 was, and then instead of capturing the bishop, he played king h7. And now I want you to find the next move, after which black resigned. What was the move? Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's queen c4. That's right. What's the idea of this move? So if queen takes, then this move leads to a checkmate on h8. If queen moves somewhere to hold the diagonal, let's say f3, then queen h4, queen blocks, queen takes, g takes, rook g7, king h8, and rook h6 leads to a checkmate. If, for example, he plays this move, then queen takes e4, f takes e4, check here, then king g8, rook h8 check, king f7, rook f6, and then we check him. No, we don't. Oh, I was thinking we could check on h7, but no, it's enough just to capture on f8, and if he captures here on c3, we capture this knight, and we have extra rook. If he plays this move, then we can give a check and escape with our bishop. The game is absolutely winning for white. Okay, so that was a good question. What if c4, so h5, c4 instead of b4? Of course, if so, then white doesn't win immediately, but his position is still better. For example, he can play queen a3 and use the weaknesses on dark squares. So here the idea is that the bishop is not restricted and we have nothing to be afraid of. So queen comes to c5, then maybe rook d4, and we still want to exploit the weakness on the dark squares. So it's not a winning position, but white is definitely better. Okay, let me close it. It's clear, I think, with this position. It was actually the game between Igor Zaitsev and Boris Spassky, and Boris Spassky lost that game. And this is the second position taken from the game between Mikhail Batminnik and Vasily Smyslov. It's black to move. And what do you think black should do here? So white has a bishop, which is a good bishop. However, even this not good, but a normal bishop. This normal bishop can be improved. Can you flip the board? No, we're going to analyze this position for white. I just want you to suggest a move that black should play. So first, I want you to find a white's plan, and after that, I want you to find a move that helps black to delay white's plan, or maybe to prevent even such a plan. Okay, so e5, knight e5 centralizes the knight and forces the bishop away. That makes sense, but no, it's a mistake. Okay, so knight e5 to chase the white bishop, followed by g5. That sounds good, but almost I'm going to show a similar variation. So, but he first played g5. g3, and in this position he had two options. He chose rook d8, rook a d8. Another option was knight e5, what leads to the same position, I think. If so, then bishop a2, and the knight here is the object of the attack after f4. Actually, if we go back here, you may realize that while we have bishop and our opponent doesn't, our task is to locate pawns on dark squares to be able to keep our bishop active and use all these light squares and light squared diagonals. So to prevent this idea, he plays g5. So actually f4, e5 should be played not only to activate the bishop, but also to gain more space and to put some pressure on his position. And maybe even play e6 to weaken the king. So g3, then let's say if knight e5, this move wasn't played on the game, bishop a2 with the idea to play f4. What black should do? g4 probably. Then f4. Knight comes to f3. What do you think white can do in this position? And how dangerous it is to have black knight so close to the king? What do you think in whose favor it is? And just any suggestions? h3 right now. What if queen h5? Queen g2? Queen g2. But it's fine. The pawn is pinned. There is nothing that white can do with the g4 pawn. Let's say I play rook a d8 here with the idea to come to d2. Queen f2 when? Here, queen f2 cannot be played because black wins. So h3 is not a good move. If queen f2 in this position, maybe, but I can't say that white is better here. For example, queen b4, put some pressure here and here. If h3 now, then knight takes e4. Okay, so George mentioned knight b1, d2. I would say it's it would be a good move in case if the position is closed. But here the position is quite open. That's why it's too slow to spend two tempers on it. Moreover, after that, he could just trade on d2 and gain a pawn on e4. e5 and is another suggestion. e5 with maybe h3. Yes, exactly. e5 here. Knight goes to the center. So it's c3 is hanging. So knight d5, c takes d5, and h3 in this position. So now queen h5 cannot be played. He probably moves the knight, but then we capture on g4 with our queen and gain a pawn. Also, we can maybe succeed in this kingside attack, or just simplify the position by trading the material. And so e5, then h3. Okay, so that's why maybe he decided not to play knight e5 because he analyzed this position. So after f4, he has the knight is chased and he has to play with it one more time. And if he comes to f3, what looks dangerous from the first glance, he may lose a pawn on g4. Oh, rook f3 doesn't make sense. There is no enough compensation. Queen h5, and in this endgame, black is better, of course. That's a mistake. So 95 doesn't really look good, but of course makes sense. Here, Vasily Smyslov realized it and didn't play. He played rook a d8, bishop a2, a kind of a prophylaxis, rook f e8, rook a d1 first, knight f8, knight moves away from the center, but he is looking to occupy these two squares, which are quite good for the knight. And then okay, just wait a second. Let's go back. Let's go back to this line. And what? So still black is better. I think to sacrifice the exchange in this position was a mistake. Now, let's say I play maybe d4 and then rook to d8, and this is how I support the pawn. No, the pawn is quite important, and black is about to trade the queens. If so, there will be no attack. Okay, so I think we should finish with 95 and go through the main line. So here in the game, knight went to f8 and white first. Oh, e5 now would face with rook takes e5. Or rook d1 and then rook e5. That's why he takes first on d8 and then plays e5. Knight comes to d5. Knight d5, c takes d5, and f4 or what? What do you think should be played in this position? How to continue? And what can you say about this bishop? No, I can't say the bishop is good, but at the same time, I'm not sure that d5 can be a barrier for the bishop. Why? Because this pawn is only protected by these two major pieces that are likely to be traded soon? And if so, the d5 pawn can be a weakness. Because if, for example, there was a pawn on c6, then I would say yes, the bishop is definitely bad because it's restricted. The only other diagonal it has is b1 h7 diagonal. But I'm not sure if the bishop can do much on this diagonal. But here the bishop has two diagonals. It attacks d5. If d5 moves, it attacks f7. Or the bishop can occupy this diagonal and somehow threaten something on h7. So it's not a bad bishop. But at the same time, it can be hardly called a good bishop for now. But this bishop can be improved. So what do you suggest for white to do here? Should they play f4 or maybe anything else? King g2, what for? Oh, rook d1, knight e6 then. Queen d2, d4 maybe. Oh, d4 works. Bishop b1, but and what then? Okay, so actually, the best move was suggested by Tim, who is watching our webinar on YouTube. But Queen d2 is not only to attack g5, but to stop Queen d4. I'll show you. So if first we play f4, then g takes f4, g takes f4, and queen d4. See, he activates the queen, attacking everything. Not here, keeping in mind queen's trade, for example, or just maybe knight e6. So it's difficult to start any kingside attack. So that's why first we have to play queen d2 and move with a tempo that controls the d4 square, and then we push our f pawn. Knight e6, f4, g takes f4, g takes f4. And in this position, probably queen d4 was a better option, but this move wasn't played. Instead, queen c6 was played. However, what if queen d4? What do you think white should do to continue? Maybe there is a way to gain a pawn in this position. What do you think? Queen g2? No, rook d1, of course, doesn't work. If rook d1, then queen's trade and knight captures on f4. Let's say this move, and what if I just capture here? Oh, what I'm sorry. Yeah, knight f4. Yeah, I wanted to capture with my knight actually. What then? So no. No, if rook d1 here, then queen d2, rook d2, knight f4. At least black is not losing. Queen d4, knight takes d4, rook d1. That's right. To take the d5 pawn. If he does this, then what should we do? f5, knight f4. And then go back to f1. What about this move? Double attack. Okay, guys, I see your moves. It's not good to send 3 messages to write a move. I see all the moves that you write here. Okay, so rook d4. If rook d4, then knight goes to then g5. F captures g6, knight g6, rook d5, rook d5, bishop d5, knight e5, and bishop b7. And this position is likely to be winning for white because of extra pawn, of course. However, even here, black has some practical chances to get a draw, but white definitely has good chances to win. However, maybe so knight e6, rook takes d5 won't work, because if so, then rook d5, bishop d5, knight f4, and the bishop captures b7, then knight d3, and white loses the pawn either on b2 or e5, and then the position gonna be equal. So what if knight e2? What do you think about this move? What can we play? Because if you play f5, then d4 is likely to be played. Rook d5, no. Rook d5 leads to the same position when the knight was on e6. So here, rook d5, he takes, then knight f4, and if bishop takes, knight d3, and it's equal. Bishop d5 is another move that I actually don't like. Why? Because of course knight f4 is a mistake, bishop f7 then, and the rook on d8 is hanging. But here just king f8, and how to get rid of this pin? Only to play bishop b3, but if so, then the pawn on f4 is lost. Or maybe f5 here. Knight f4, bishop b3. It's then the same idea with knight d3, fork. And that's it. I think in such a case, in this position, the best option is to play f5 now, and then d5 is hanging. If he wants to save it, he has to play. Well, if he does this move, then knight d4, rook d4, and we have a similar position when we gain a pawn. but he can play this move, d4. If so, maybe bishop c4 or king g2. So the king can come closer, and the pawn on d4 can be a weakness. So it can be a weakness even in case of bishop c4. But I think this move should be better. So then we locate the king here, somehow chase the knight with bishop c4 maybe, and then take on d4. If so, white can win. But practically, black could have some chances for a draw, of course. Okay, so I believe queen d4 was a better option anyway. In the game, it was queen c6, f5, of course, knight c5, maybe not the best choice, and queen g5, threatening this rook, and maybe some mating attack with queen g7. So what do you think black can do now to defend his position? So what do you think, if f6 should be played, g6, or maybe just rook d7? So any of these three moves. Or if you have your own variation, please suggest. Rook e8. Okay, so rook e8 is a weird move, actually. If this move is played, then after rook g1, I don't know what to do. Because d4, just this move. And how to defend the pawn on g7. Because this move won't work. If so, just f takes g6, the pawn is pinned, so knight e7, f takes here, king takes, then queen g7 is a mate. No, rook e8 is... rook e8 underestimates this problem with g7 pawn. Okay, so what else here? f6. f6, e6 cannot be played by white because the queen is hanging. So probably f takes, e takes f6. But then queen f6. And everything is fine. But after f6, actually queen g2 should be played. And after f takes e5, b4 to chase the knight, and then f6. And now it's difficult to defend. For example, rook d7 is faced with f7, and he can't capture because of bishop d5. But if he plays king f8, then how to win this position? Queen h3. Actually, I don't like queen h3. Queen h3, rook f7. And what? No, guys, it's not queen h3. Yeah, so Young is correct. It's queen takes g7, because then we promote, and doesn't really matter where the king goes. Oh, actually, yes, it matters. If he goes to a light square, then queen f5, taking the knight at least. If he goes to a dark square, oh wait, sorry, he has only two squares. Then queen f5. Fine, so rook d7, f7, the game is over. If not this move, if queen d7, then queen e4. f7 or queen e4. I like queen e4 more. We are taking the knight. And d5 pawn as well. So what to do? Knight f4 probably. Then queen e5. Knight e6. F takes g7. He takes. Queen g5 with a strong attack. Maybe f7 makes sense as well. f7. No, f7, king f8. No. Another move in this position is f takes. Yeah, maybe to take here. And if so, then bishop d5, king goes here, then check, then something like that. No, I actually don't like this position. I prefer to play queen e4 with the idea to capture the e5 pawn and then weaken the king. So f6 wasn't played, instead rook d7 was played. Rook g1 to threaten a checkmate, and now f6 is played. And now I believe you understand how good the bishop became, because it's only one pawn. And our king is weak as well, but we prevent the d pawn from moving because of this pin. So the bishop is good. It can join the attack by taking on d5 with the idea to apply a tactical strike, or the bishop just stops the pawn, so it does two tasks simultaneously. So f6, e takes f6. You know, the queen can't capture the g pawn is pinned. Knight e4 then with a tempo. How would you play then? Should we take on g7, or you have something better? Oh, we definitely shouldn't, because then we lose a queen. Okay, what comes to your mind in this position? How to continue, or how to succeed in this attack? f7. So f7. If you play f7, he can do two things. Oh, I don't believe king f7 works, because then queen g7, and it's obvious that white is absolutely winning. For example, king e8, queen h8, and then the rook comes to g7. And after king goes to the 6th rank, so just rook g6 is enough to gain a queen. Maybe there is something better. So he has to take with the rook. This is what actually happened in the game. How to continue? Queen g7 won't work. Queen g7, rook g7 just. And if you mentioned queen g7 in this position, it still doesn't work. So, and what then? Let's say knight f6. If you want to capture with your rook, fine. King f8, and what? White can't succeed. It's winning for white now. So f7, rook f7, and then queen d8, right? If he does this move, bishop d5 wins the game. So, for example, king moves here, then I think the best way is just to capture. No. The best way is to play queen h4 move. Because if we just capture here, he does this intermediate check, king g2, and then rook d8. And now both pieces are hanging. So there is no big advantage for white. No, bishop b7, white is better, but I'm not sure if it's enough to win the game. But if we do queen h4 instead, here he has only one move to block with the queen, then we may capture on e4 with our queen. But if we want to simplify the position, we better take on h6, so king takes h6, then bishop f4, and with extra piece, it's absolutely winning. So instead of rook f8, king h7 was played. Bishop d5 now. It's a fork, knight f2, king g2, but it's just a temporary defense. And here, while everything is hanging, all three pieces, queen c2 probably doesn't really give any chances, because then we take, and what? You always are able to escape. No, that doesn't work. Wait, queen h4 first. Sorry, that's my fault. Queen h4 first, king g8. Then we take here first with a check, and then queen f2. And there is no perpetual check, of course, because we can defend with queen f3. So, for example, like that, queen f3, queen c2, and king h1. It's absolutely winning position. Yeah, so you're right about queen h4. Queen f6, but the game is already over. Queen takes, rook takes, king f2, rook f5, bishop f3. Then they played a few moves. After rook g4, White realized that he has no chances. And this is where he resigned. So here Vasily Smyslov resigned. Okay, if you have any questions about this game, so you may ask me. However, I'm going to make a summary of this game, and we will switch to another game where Bobby Fischer was playing. So here, White's plan is to play e5, f4, or f4, e5, with the idea not only to activate the bishop, to allow the bishop more space and more open diagonals, but also to put the pressure on enemy position and maybe create a kind of kingside attack. But the main idea, of course, was to obtain more space. So White did it with g3 and then f4, like that. So here the bishop was blocked, but actually the pawn on d5 is only protected by the pieces. That's why it wasn't, that's not enough to restrict the bishop. And later you'll see that White find a good plan that forced Black to play f6, and the diagonal became almost open. And then White started to analyze several tactical ideas with bishop d5 sacrifice or something very close to it. And of course, then because of the tactical solutions, he won that game. Okay, fine. Let me close it. Okay, here I opened the game between Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer. The game was played in 1966 in Santa Monica. So today we're analyzing how to play with a bishop against knight. So the bishop on e4 is much better than the knight on the edge of the board, and I believe you understand who won that game. Of course, it was Boris Spassky, because here he has a bishop, and our lesson is devoted to how to exploit the advantage of having a bishop against knight. So what do you think? It's white to... Oh, actually, it was black to move, and black played queen c5 move. Why? His idea was to get rid of this pin. So the queen on d4 is pinned, so if rook f6, then queen d4 just. So queen c5 should be played then. If, for example, instead he plays this move with the idea to get rid of the pin, then bishop d5, he has to go back, and then we are threatening with g4, g5. However, while you see it's impossible to get rid of this pin right now, the only way is to play queen c5. So, for example, if g4, then queen c5 can simplify the position. Of course, white is better because of better bishop's position. But what should we do first to be able to exploit this pin and not to allow black to play queen c5 here? What comes to your mind for white in this position? Yeah, it's just king h1 move. And then we may apply this idea with g4, g5. Okay, fine. So queen c5. Anyway, queen takes, pawn takes. No. First, he decided to trade on f1. King takes, and then pawn takes. So in this endgame, I would play bishop d5 to restrict the knight. However, Boris Spassky played another move. What do you think? What was this move? Yeah, I would definitely play bishop d5. The move looks really great because this is how we stop the knight, and we can do anything we want until the enemy king reaches the center. So instead of bishop d5, what other useful moves do you see? h4. Oh, can you explain? Keep pawn on g6 on white square. You're absolutely right. So here h4 is even better than bishop d5 to stop the pawn from moving. So that's why this king on g7 or the king standing on f6 will be tied down to this pawn. But at the same time, we allow the knight to escape. King e2, knight e5, king e3, king f6. So white is definitely better in this position, but it's not enough to win the game. Okay, king f4 then. Okay, so yeah, okay, so there is a common problem. I'll read it. I have one problem during the game. I cannot think clearly like while I'm on training. So, and I'm usually play from move to move. Okay, what can I say about this problem? First, I want you to look at the position from the other angle. For example, from your opponent's angle, like what he thinks gonna happen. And of course, if the position is close, you should be looking for long-term plans. If the position is open, it makes sense too. But usually, when the position is open, it's better to calculate lines, so move by move, and actually, you can change the plan by every second move in the open position. It depends on how he reacts on it. Okay, fine. So knight f7 was played with the idea to play g5, king e3. Now g5 is played. However, I don't really like this move because then h5, and now this pawn is a protected passed pawn. Knight blocks it on h6, but king comes to the queen side. King f5, bishop e8. Looks like a weird move, but there the bishop can hardly be reached with the enemy king. King d6, king c4, g4, a4. So black is in a kind of a zugzwang here. The goal is to get the king to a6, and at the same time we need our pawn to be closer. Bishop e4 to restrict the knight. So g3, and now the king comes and takes the pawn on a7. So if we take on a7, what's gonna happen? Queen the pawn. So you think we should take? No? What to do now? Put stuck on the corner, in the corner, right? So bishop a2, right? Bishop a2. Why? Because if we take immediately, then c4 can cause some problems. So the king is too far from the pawn. However, even this position is weak because of bishop e4 check. Then king, let's say c7. Then king goes here, so we escape, and finally we can chase the pawn and take it. And then while the king tries to stop the pawn on that side, we will get our king to that side and force him to sacrifice the knight for a pawn. But it's more simple just to play bishop a2 to stop the pawn on c4. King c7, king takes a7. Knight g4, bishop e6. And now the knight is restricted, you see? We just play a6, and he has no moves. He has either c4 to sacrifice the pawn or king c6. But if king c6, king b8, and we promote. And that's all. Yes, Fischer resigned in this position after king b8. So, of course, so black experienced some problems and finally passed the game to the end game with knight against a good bishop. However, this bishop activity was not enough to win the game, and then he played several mistakes, and I believe g5 is one of them. G5 because it allows white to create a distant passed pawn, and then the king can just go to the queen side to capture the pawn on a7. That was the problem. On move 50. So maybe. Okay, let me just double check. No. So Fischer resigned here after bishop a2. So Fischer resigned in this position. It's quite clever because it's obvious that white is winning, especially if such a strong player as Boris Spassky is playing with white pieces. Okay, fine. So we did the analysis of these three games, and now I prepared two exercises for you. So the first position, it's white to move, and I want you to take the advantage of having a good bishop on f6. The position is absolutely winning for white. Your task is just to find a winning plan. Or even a concrete move that wins the game. Okay, so rook d3, rook h3, rook h8 is suggested. That makes sense. I agree with you. But if you play rook d3, let's say I play this move. Hmm. Okay, so anyway, even in case of rook a1, I believe rook e6 can be played. So rook d3 looks good, but how to deal with rook e6? Yeah, it's g5, a key move in this position. So rook d3, rook e6, g5. And then the best thing he has is to sacrifice the exchange and then play king g8, because otherwise rook h3, rook h8 is coming here. But of course, it's obvious that white is absolutely winning in this position. Rook d3, rook e6, g5, king g8, rook h3, and now he sacrifices. If here he does g5, then rook h3 still works, and he has no time for rook e6 because we deliver a checkmate. So rook d3 and g5. Okay, fine. It's good. And now the second position. It's taken from the game between Alexander Alekin and Max Euwe. So the first exercise was quite simple, while this position is quite difficult. I want you to find a winning plan for white. It's quite a complicated plan. So what to keep attention on? So you have a good bishop, and it can be located on open diagonals, and then you can exploit it. Rook d1, rook d1, knight takes c3. To play on the king side, so first move bishop d3. Okay, bishop d3, let's say h6. What's the plan? Mm-hmm. Creating passed pawn. Okay, so that's absolutely correct. So here, White's plan is to create two connected passed pawns on the king side, or at least a distant passed pawn on the king side. That's why he plays bishop d3 move. What if here he takes on c3? Then bishop h7. He may also capture the second pawn, but then bishop f5, king d8, and then he just promotes with h5, rook d2, h6, rook h2, h7, and then we just stop with g4, king g3, and after rook h6, just g5, g6, and so on. So here the knight is too far, and it can't really help. So knight c3 is a mistake. h6, bishop f5, check first to get the king to d8, and then just king g4 and h5. If here he takes on c3, then still this move, knight a4, king h6, rook d2, and after h5, this pawn is much faster than anything he can do on the queen side. So we just play king g7, h6, and so on. If instead he tries to defend his position with his knight going back, then bishop b1 first, rook d5, and f5. And now nothing can stop us from taking the pawn on h6. So king h5, king g6, and if knight g8, king given to g7, and then we capture on h6 and try to create a passed pawn on the h file. Or maybe we'll play g4, g5, and there will be two passed pawns. So of course, bishop activity is the dominating factor, and this factor decides the game here. Okay, so fine. That's all I wanted to tell you on this webinar. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. What else? So the next webinar will be next Sunday. I'm not sure what topic I'm going to cover. Didn't decide yet. You may suggest if you want. You can also reach me on at my email, tricksofchess@gmail.com. Okay, so I'm also accepting students. So if you want to become my students, just message me and we'll decide about the rates and the schedule. This session is recorded and you can watch it on YouTube. So that's the link. I also suggest you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, not to miss any new videos. And of course the webinars. So guys, and all attendees of this webinar will receive an email about the next webinar. So don't miss it. It's likely to be sent on Wednesday or on Thursday. Where is these games in your blog? So I didn't publish these games on my blog in PGN, but I am going to do it soon. So you may find them later on my website on tricksofchess.teachable.com. There is also my blog. And first I publish everything on my blog, and then I do it on chess.com, but not everything. So this is the blog. Okay, fine. Thank you for your attention. And actually, after I finish the webinar, you will be automatically redirected to my blog. If you like anything there, you may just look the articles, analyze the positions, because the PGN analysis is also provided there. So if any questions, you can reach me by email. And thank you for attending the webinar.